So in this particular lesson and the new booklet on data, working with graphs, lesson 1, interpreting graphs. Our main goal is to interpolate or extrapolate from the graph. I'll talk about what those two words mean. Extra. Interpolate, extrapolate. You know it already? Okay. Hold that off for now. Describe the trends in the graph of the data set. So describing the trend. Do you see a pattern? The trend is like, what's a pattern? What's going on in here? And interpret graphs and data. Interpret graphs and data. What do you see in this graph, and how would you interpret, or what kind of information is giving you in here? So it says here, data which has been collected can be displayed in a variety of ways. So just like what we talked about earlier, we've collected data. We have to collect data first. So that's the first part, collect the data. And once we collect the data, we can show that data in a variety of ways, okay? And then we're going to talk about that in a second. So data can be displayed as a list, okay? As a list. We can have the data as a list. So just listing down the information that you got. We could display our data or show our data as a table of values. We're going to see that later on. Or we can show it as a graph. And when we talk about graph, there are different kinds of graph. Okay, and we'll explore that as well. So there are various types of graphs, and the one that we're going to be particularly interested in are bar graphs, line graphs, circle graphs, okay, or picture graphs. Okay, so these are the ones that we are going to explore. So we collect data, and then from the data we can create a graph to show our information. Okay, so let's see here. Graphs are used to display data because they give a lot of information about trends with a quick glance. So when we did our data collection, we can see the pattern earlier when we talked about the sleeping number of hours of the students or the people in this room. We can see the pattern. We can say, hey, the vast majority of the people spent 7 hours of sleep. That's the majority. Some people have less, some people have more. That's okay, right? Which we couldn't do that if we just list them out. Okay? So, example one. Interpreting a line graph. So, the first graph that we're going to talk about is a line graph. Okay, well, why do you call it a line graph? Because there's like a whole bunch of lines in here, right? That's a line. It's not a straight line, but it's kind of crooked depending on what the information is given. So, tell me what this graph is about. Okay, population of Canada. Okay, what do you think the bottom is?
The year, the population.
The year. Okay, so this graph is not quite complete. It wasn't completely and thoroughly done, because the bottom, you're thinking that's the year. We should identify that on our graph. We should put year. Okay. So on the horizontal axis, it talks about the year. And then on the vertical axis is what?
People.
Number of people. Number of people. So just by looking at this, looking at the specific, can you see a trend? What's the pattern? What's happening to what's the pattern in this?
Right.
The population is rising in years.
The population is rising. And how do you know it's rising?
The people.
Okay.
The numbers are getting higher.
Okay. It's getting higher. And then I can see that students are motioning their hand. They're going like this. They're going like this. Right? That means it's going up. And as you can see, yeah. So I'm going to ask you some questions in here. Okay? What is the population in on the year 1867? Approximately. Okay, approximately in 1867, what is the population?
32 million.
About
33, 32 million.
you got 3 million?
3 million.
About close to about 3 million, right? A little bit more, right? Yeah, we don't know exactly, but approximately 3 million. So it's 1867, 3 million right there. Okay. What do you think is the population? What is the population in 2002? 35 million. Okay, is everybody okay with that?
A little less under.
Yeah,
A little less under, maybe like
about
34 and a quarter maybe.
yeah, okay. So approximately 35 million, a little bit less because it didn't really touch that. So how do we do that? How do you read this graph? So in 2002, it's right here. Okay, 2002, the year is 2002. And then if you, this is where your graph, and if you have a ruler,
And between the millions, they're going by 3 million in between. And each of the people.
yeah. So I'm gonna just borrow this
Do you
ruler
think
here.
in 2002 it would only be 31 million?
In 2002,
Straight with the ruler?
okay, if I go like this,
Because you have to go by inches on the.
okay. So here's my ruler. Okay, it has to be straight up. So be straight up. Okay. So 2002. Bring it all the way up. Is right there. There's a point, and that at that time, what is the so it's gonna be approximately okay, so this is 2002. You draw a vertical line, and then horizontal line this way. Now, what is this number in here? The only thing that we could do is approximate because it's just too big of a gap. So we know the population is going to be between 31 million and 35 million. So approximately in between, what would that be? I would say about 33 million, right? About 33 million.
Because between 31 million and 35 million, there's 3 million in between.
Yeah, approximately. Yeah.
Cutting it in half would be at 33.
So, is everybody okay with that piece? Let's take a look at question A. What was the population in 1927? 1927. So let's locate 1927. 1927 is right here. Okay. If you have a straight edge, let's draw a straight line up there. So this part there, that's the point on our graph. That's our point on our graph. And then we're going to need to draw a horizontal line. Okay. So we know in 1927, the population is between 7 million and 11 million. Is everybody okay with that one? Between 7 million and 11 million. But which one is it closer to? It's closer to 11, right? So 7. So 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Students, you are welcome to attend a presentation today at 12 o'clock in the student lounge to hear from the University of Manitoba and how they can help you if you have a personal, financial, or academic need. If you feel you might have difficulties going to university, Access can help, so come on down.
So this is going to be approximately, when you look at this, is 7 million to 11 million. That's 4 million gap, right? The 4 million in between. So if you cut it into millions, it's going to be approximately 10 million people. Okay.
You're with me on some brains? What's there?
No,
I remember a little bit of
your brains are growing as we go speak more. Expanding your brains, yeah, expanding your brains. So letter B, we'll probably just do the B. What was the population of Canada in 1964? Well, where is 1964 in here? It's going to be between 1957 and 1972. Okay, so how many years are in between 1957 to 1972? How many years apart are they?
15.
Okay, 1957 to 1972 is what? 15 years. So in between. So it's 15 years in between. Every single one is 15 years in between. So 1964, what is the population in 1964? So if you take a look at this one, we have to cut it into 15 parts because there's 15 years in between, which was a little bit difficult to do. So 1964 would be, is it closer to 1957?
You would count
Okay.
from 7 and then
It's 7 years in between, right? So it's going to be approximately in between. 7 years after 1957. So we approximate 7 years from there. Okay? Because if it's 15 years, 17 years would be somewhere in the middle. And then you take a look, well, what is that? It's approximately 19 million. Yeah.
Over the 19.
Oh, yours is probably. Yeah. Maybe slightly over, depending on how straight you've drawn the graph, right? Yeah. 19 and 2 people. I love that. 19 and 2 people. 19 million and 2. Okay. Now, this is called, right? This is called interpolation. Interpolation. Okay, what does interpolation mean? It means reading between
Coming up with your own numbers.
reading between the data on graph. Okay? Because we have data between 1867 and 2002. So the word inter means in between. The word inter means in between. So our data is between 1867 to 2002, and 1964 is in between those data. So I'm going to stop right here. I will continue on this particular topic tomorrow, but yeah, we'll sign off for now. We'll work on it tomorrow. If you want, you can just read ahead and see what's up, what's coming up, and a whole bunch of examples that we're going to do tomorrow. Okay? So